With all due respect, that's a bunch of malarkey. This is a bunch of stuff, deal.
What does that mean, a bunch of stuff?
Well, it means it's simply inaccurate.
It's Irish.
Exactly, it is. We Irish call it malarkey.
Thanks for the translation.
No, we Irish call it malarkey.
You know what this is? Yeah, and I reserve this word for those rare instances when it's truly deserved. This is malarkey.
That's a bunch of malarkey.
Direct from the King Spring Studios in beautiful Smyrna, Georgia. This is a bunch of malarkey. Now, here's your host, the incredible Charlie McMahon.
1 year later, 50 episodes later, over 200,000 downloads later. Here we are, folks. Who would have thunk it? But here we are, our 1 year anniversary special. 1 year bringing you a bunch of malarkey. Thanks to Scott Shannon for that wonderful introduction. And thanks to all of you, the listeners who made this episode and this whole year possible. We couldn't have done it without you. I want to thank all of you for the support, the encouragement, the interaction, the Mutant of the Week voting. Everything you've done to make this show possible, it is truly appreciated. And I really can't thank you enough, folks. If you would have told me a year ago when I just put this show together that I'd be here a year later, 50 episodes in, over 200,000 listeners and counting, the show growing every week, every month, I would have said, you're crazy. I thought, a couple people would be listening from the toilet bowl. As we've spoken a lot here on Bunch of Malarkey about toilets and things like that. And I will have a toilet story coming up. But here we are a year later, and I don't know, I think it calls for a song. What do you say?
Oh, happy anniversary, happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary.
Who could tell me what this song is from?
Happy anniversary. But be careful you don't.
Come on, folks, you know the song. Think of your childhood.
Happy anniversary, happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary, happy anniversary to Malarkey. So here we are, folks, a year later, and we're singing songs and we're having some fun. So I just wanted to thank you all again for making this possible. Again, you can't do it without the listeners. You really can't. And there's a loyal core of listeners. Yes, we have new listeners every week and every month, but there's that loyal core, and you know who you are, who vote every week on the Mutant, who tune in every week, who comment, and don't think you're not noticed because you are. So, this show is about a lot of bullshit and stuff like that, a lot of malarkey, although we have covered some important topics or current topics, over the last year. But a lot of it's just about day-to-day nonsense, trivial shit, malarkey. That's why it's called a bunch of malarkey. But we try to mix it up. And I also have a stat here, which I found surprising. And let me pull it up here. This is our 50th show, and I've had 20 shows with a guest, and I've done 30 alone. So it's a 60-40 split. 60% of the time I'm alone, 40% with a guest. So I think that's a pretty good balance for the show. And again, no matter what I throw out there, you guys seem to enjoy it. Last week we spoke about plant-based and vegan lifestyles, and you guys loved it. The numbers, I thought, maybe the numbers would go down because people really don't. People who aren't really into that lifestyle maybe wouldn't listen, but you listened, you made your voices heard, commented, emailed, texted, and whatnot. Now, speaking of texting, I did put out a thing on the Facebook page and elsewhere that I wanted you guys to call in, leave a voicemail, and I would play it on the show. Now, I know we're not a society anymore where people like to talk on telephones, and that was made clear as only 2 of you actually left voicemail. So I'm not even going to do that on the show, but I want to acknowledge Philip and Renee, both who have been contributors to the show, for calling in. But I did receive a lot of emails and texts and things of that nature congratulating us on a year. People just like to stay behind the keyboard or the phone and just text. People don't like to have their voices, especially maybe they didn't want to have their voices on the show. So I don't take offense, folks. I thought that would be a nice segment to have the listeners featured, but you guys chose to go in another direction and text and email and things of that nature. So shout out to Philip and Renee for actually leaving the voicemails, and a shout out to the rest of you who showed the love via text or email. So I thank you all. Really, I appreciate it. And I guess I understand. I don't know if I'd leave a voicemail for a show. You know, everybody's different. You can't even call anybody anymore. And everybody wants to text and everything else. So I get it. So we're in the middle of the summer now, folks, and, you know, thunderstorms have been popping up everywhere. My in-laws, a couple of times on the phone this week, they were hit with thunderstorms when we were talking to them on the phone, and everywhere. My brother's, right near his house, got hit by lightning, and it knocked out one of his HVAC units and his outlets and his router for his internet back on the 4th of July. So, you know, lightning storms are prevalent. And we were always told as kids, don't talk on the phone during a lightning storm because you'll get electrocuted. My mother was a little paranoid. She'd unplug everything and we'd have to sit in like darkness until the storm passed. You know, another extreme thing from my childhood. But whoever thought going on the toilet could be a risk during a thunderstorm? Now, there's this woman, Mary Lou Ward, and her husband, I believe it was South Carolina, Gulf Cove, South Carolina. Her husband and her 3 dogs were laying in bed last Sunday morning listening to the rain and the thunder. You know, we all like to listen to rain and thunderstorms. It's soothing in a way. When they were literally blown out of their bed. She said, we got out of bed and came over into the bathroom, and the toilet was laying in the middle of the bathroom in a million pieces. A1 Affordable Plumbing, the company helping clean up the mess, said lightning struck near the home septic tank out in the backyard. That combined with the methane gas in shit caused the bomb-like effect that traveled through the pipes, exploding the toilet in their master bathroom. I already sent a picture out to my kids and said, don't do it. Here's proof of why you shouldn't go near the bathroom in a thunderstorm, said the couple's next-door neighbor, Charles Allen. The plumbing company said this is just as rare as getting struck by lightning itself. So you want to steer clear of the toilet during a thunderstorm now, folks, especially if you have a septic tank. You might want to hold it in or, you know, just wait till the storm passes. So you can't make this stuff up, folks. When I read that story, I'm like, this has to be fake. But no, it was featured on a lot of the news networks. So it's true. So let's get right into it. We have a great lineup today. We got a great show. So let's get right into our favorite segment. And can you believe this will be 100 mutants that are up for nominees? And this will be, we have 49 shows so far. So this is our 50th show times 2. Our 99th and 100th mutant nominees coming up. So let's do it.
Mutant of the Week.
All right, so last week, in another landslide, I think this is 3 landslides in a row, we had the Spud Sprinkler, the woman who peed on the potatoes in Walmart. She beat the recognized robber 80% to 20%. The recognized robber was the guy who robbed a bank and had his name and address on the back of the slip of paper demanding the money. So it was the Spud Sprinkler in a landslide, and she will be our mutant nominee until one of these 2 beat her and wear the crown. So if you don't know where to vote, you're new to the show, go to our Facebook page, A Bunch of Malarkey. Every Tuesday morning, bright and early, the poll goes up. It runs through midday on Saturday, so you have 5 days to vote. And here are the mutant nominees for this week for the anniversary edition of A Bunch of Malarkey. We've got to go out to Kansas, where a Kansas man responded to a police department's Facebook post when authorities were trying to locate him on 2 outstanding warrants. Bantering back and forth with the police and other posters Tuesday afternoon, police found their man and arrested him. The Riley County Police Department was trying to find Jesse Sexton, he's 33, of Manhattan, Kansas, and posted on Facebook seeking the public's help. It said, we are attempting to perform a welfare check on Mr. Sexton after a request from a family member who is concerned for his safety. So I guess that was like a bait saying we're looking out for his welfare so people wouldn't know they're looking to arrest him. Sexton himself wrote back saying, I'm not missing. According to the Facebook post, police asked Sexton to contact them by telephone, and he did. It turned into a search for Sexton because of the outstanding warrants. He wrote, "Tell them I'm fishing at Rocky Ford if they want to talk or something," he wrote in a later post. Police said they eventually received a tip as to his whereabouts and arrested him on Tuesday. He's being held in the Riley County Jail on felony warrant for probation violation, and more charges are pending, the television station in Kansas reported. So let's call him the Facebook fraternizing felon. So he knows the police are looking for him, and he actually starts communicating with them on Facebook and actually calls them back and wonders why he is in jail now. So the Facebook fraternizing felon is our first Mutant nominee out of Kansas. And for our second nominee, we got to go up to the beautiful Pacific Northwest, Tacoma, Washington, where a woman named Jamie Bisceglia met up with some fishermen who had hooked an octopus during a fishing derby in Tacoma, Washington last week. And it was then where she saw an opportunity for an unusual picture. It was a photo contest in the derby, so crazy me, she said, hindsight now looking back, I probably made a big mistake. Bisceglia put the octopus on her face and posed. At first, it grabbed her with its suckers, and then it did something she didn't expect. It bit her on her face. It had barreled its beak into my chin and then let go a little bit and did it again, said Bisceglia. It was a really intense pain when it went inside, and it just bled, dripping blood for a long time. Bisceglia said the octopus was a smaller juvenile version of a giant Pacific octopus, although a spokeswoman at the Point Defiant Zoo and Aquarium says it could have been a Pacific red octopus. Both have a powerful beak used to break and eat crabs, clams, and mussels. Their bite contains a venom to immobilize their prey. Bisceglia says that the venom left her in incredible pain, but as owner of South Sound Salmon Sisters, she kept fishing for 2 more days before she finally went to an emergency room. And I'm still in pain, she said. I'm on 3 different meds, antibiotics, and this pain comes and goes. The swelling, for months it could go on, they say. She says the whole painful experience taught her a valuable lesson about handling a live octopus. This was not a good idea, said Bisceglia. I will never do it again. So let's call her the octomoron. But this is common, folks. These selfies and pictures. People are dying at the Grand Canyon because they're leaning over the canyon trying to get a good selfie. This is trying to take pictures with wild animals, and then people wonder why they are getting hurt and killed because of these stupid selfies they're trying to impress people with. So, folks, I have a couple of segments to play for you. 2 guests that I talked with earlier in the week. The first is a fan favorite. It was someone who appeared on the show 4 times in our first 20 episodes. She is beloved by all the fans, and people kept asking when she is coming back. So without further ado, I spent about an hour or so talking with this legendary co-host / guest, and I think you're going to enjoy it. This basically sums up the show. When you talk about a bunch of malarkey, we spent an hour talking about just malarkey, and I really enjoyed the conversation, and I think you will too. So here you go. She appeared in 4 of the first 20 episodes of A Bunch of Malarkey, which included Mind Your Manners, Halloween Hijinks, Guilty Pleasure Confessions, and Seasonal Sensitivity. She is a listener favorite here on the show and really gave the podcast some early traction in building our listener base and following. Her name is Jen, and she's back in the King Spring studios. Jen, welcome back.
Wow, that was quite an introduction. Y'all can't see this, but I think there are lights shining down on me from above, and angels are going, ooh.
You didn't realize you were a celebrity. People are asking, when is she coming back? Now, this is your first appearance of 2019, so should I be a mutant and say Happy New Year?
Happy New Year, yes.
So, I was thinking, Jen, I couldn't have our anniversary show. We're celebrating a year on the air of A Bunch of Malarkey without having you as part of the show.
And I can't imagine not being here. I can't believe it's already been a year.
I know. I was thinking today about where I was, what was going on a year ago. And my book was written and in the editing stages, about to launch. It was about 2 months before its launch. I was launching this show. And I just can't believe everything that's happened over the past year.
It's amazing, isn't it?
It really is. We're getting old.
Speak for yourself.
Now, come on. What are we, a couple of years apart?
I do not know, but I do not get older.
We won't negotiate that on the air.
Yeah, let's not.
Well, speaking of being old, is it me, or has the music in supermarkets gotten so much better?
I go to Publix just to dance and sing as I walk up and down.
It's like an 80s dance party.
I am the crazy Publix dancing lady.
Right, so
seriously.
I'm in there, 10 days ago, and they're playing the standard, Always Something There to Remind Me. But then, We Don't Have to Take Our Clothes Off by Jermaine Stewart comes on. I'm in the produce aisle feeling up melons, cucumbers, and all of a sudden, But I never got that song. Here's a guy in the song. We're going to, go off on a tangent here. He's telling the girl, you just took for granted that I wanted to skinny dip. Like, the woman's coming on to him, and he's saying he's not a piece of meat, stimulate my brain. The night is young, and so are we. Let's get to know each other slow and easily. And then he says, we don't have to take our clothes off to have a good time. We can dance and party all night and drink some cherry wine. What is cherry wine?
I always assumed. Well, let me take that back. I didn't care when the song came out. It was just so boppy. I didn't care about the words. And as I got older, I just assumed cherry wine is something cheap that he bought to get her drunk.
No, because he doesn't want to get her drunk because he's not looking to take advantage. He just wants to take things slow.
Yeah, but he's a dude, so I believe he's saying all that just so he can get her drunk and get
I
all
don't
her
know.
clothes off.
I just never heard of a man saying we don't have to take our clothes off to have a good time.
Seriously, you never gave a girl a line. Come on back with me. We'll just snuggle. We won't do anything.
We'll just watch a movie.
Exactly.
Let's go to Blockbuster.
And you know that you are not just going to watch a movie.
Was there a Blockbuster in Chill before Netflix and Chill? Was maybe not in Chill, but there was something with, you would go to Blockbuster, but you had to go out and get the movie.
I think all you could do after you went to Blockbuster was chill because of the stress that the movie you wanted might not be there. Or
Exactly. Remember? And then you thought there was one left and it was the display box. The disappointment that came over you.
That was a real letdown.
So if we're old enough to remember Blockbuster memberships and Jermaine Stewart from '86 with "We Don't Have to Take Your Clothes Off," we're getting up there.
Okay.
Which made me think of we don't really have a topic this week, but yeah, I guess we kind of have a mini topic which we're going to talk about. The other day, we were having friends over on Saturday night, part of which to record this podcast, Benji and Claire. Now, before I get into the story, name a couple you go out with all the time. Just first names, a male-female couple that you and your husband go out with.
Laura and Brent.
All right. You said Laura and Brent. Do you ever say Brent and Laura?
Sometimes.
But what about your husband? Does he call them Laura and Brent or Brent and Laura? Or do you mix it up, or is it just whatever comes to your mind?
I believe he probably says Brent and Laura because he's friends with Laura separately, with Brent separately, and I'm friends with Laura separately. So I think Brent is primary in his
Yeah, we
mind.
got into this discussion the other night because I said to Benji and Claire, when you say Charlie and Jen, or do you say Jen and Charlie, or we're going out to Charlie and Jen's house, or Jen and Charlie's house? And we got into this whole discussion of how we pick whose name goes first, or if it's not like Bennifer when Ben Affleck dated Jennifer Lopez, where they combine the names. You have to pick one name before the other. How do you do that?
Well,
whatever comes to mind?
I feel like it's whatever rolls off the tongue. I think I would say Jen and Charlie. Charlie and Jen. Charlie and Jen. I think I would say Charlie and Jen.
Right.
Because it just rolls off better.
See, I say Benji and Claire, and I say Claire and Benji sometimes, but it doesn't mean I like one better than the other or I'm closer to one. I love them both the same.
No, I don't think so either. I think it just however
it rolls off, whatever comes to your mind.
And I normally say Laura and Brent because that rolls off my tongue, but if Brent has done something wrong, then his name goes first so that everybody knows Laura's next to Brent.
See, this is pure malarkey. This is the roots of the show, folks. This petty nonsense. But anyway, so Benji and Claire and Benji came over. We did the podcast and had dinner and all that. But earlier in the day, my wife said she was going to meet a couple of her female friends out for lunch. And jokingly, I said, you're going to go out gallivanting. Now, people really don't gallivant anymore, but that's a thing from when we were kids. Is that an expression your parents use? You gallivant?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Right? And do you know that I always thought I knew it was a real word, but gallivant is actually, a definition of it is to go around from one place to another in the pursuit of pleasure or entertainment. That's the actual real meaning of gallivant.
Which means that we gallivant all the time.
Exactly.
We just don't call it that.
Yeah, the young people don't say gallivant
What do they
anymore.
call it?
carousing? I don't know.
There is not a 20-something on this earth who has ever said carousing.
Well, that's another word for it, carousing around.
But I believe that's on the same list as gallivanting.
But did your mom used to say, my mom used to say, if you think you were out gallivanting all day and now you're going to do your chores. Gallivant was the main word in my house growing up.
It was a big word. Also, come on, we've got to go. We're not here to gallivant. I have something I need to pick up.
Mosey around.
Yeah, mosey.
Lollygagging.
Yes, lollygagging. Yeah, those were all big.
What about, this was a big one my grandmother used to say, and my mom, if you were busy getting ready, taking too long, come on, what are you in there getting all dolled up?
Oh, people still say that, I think.
People say dolled up?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, I didn't think people said dolled up anymore.
Well, maybe people I hang out with because they're old.
I say that to my wife all the time because I'll be ready and she'll be up there doing whatever, makeup, and I'll, come on, you're getting all dolled up for nothing. Come on, we're just going to the restaurant or we're just going to the supermarket. What are you getting all dolled up for? I say, I carry these phrases down from generation. I don't have any future generation to pass it down to like you do, but I still use the words. Do you pass these words down to your daughter?
I think so. I think she said some things a few times that make her sound like a crotchety old man.
So she says gallivant?
I don't think she says gallivant. No, but she does. What did? Oh my gosh! It just went right out of my head. She does say some word like that. I'll think of it in a minute. But like one thing I said to her the other day, and she looked at me like I was nuts. She said when we were leaving the house, and I said, "Come on, Celine, let's went."
Let's went.
And she's like, what is that? And I'm like, oh, Papa used to say that all the time when we were leaving to go somewhere. That was my dad. You've never heard let's went?
Is that a Florida thing?
Well, my dad's from Buffalo and my mom's from Pittsburgh, so.
Maybe it's a steel belt thing, like a
maybe
rust
it's
belt.
An upstate thing.
Upstate, yeah, upstate. We called upstate Canada. It wasn't part of New York.
He's Buffalo, pretty close.
What about, have you ever heard this term? It's an actual word. I didn't know that either. Big word in my house growing up. When my mom thought somebody was acting too pretentious or fancy or thought they were better than everybody, they were highfalutin.
Yeah, that was kicked around a bit, but not it wasn't a regular staple usage. Mm-mm.
All right, highfalutin was big.
My dad had a phrase along those same lines, like if you did something that was your responsibility anyway, and you just sort of said, look at what I did, and everyone was like, well, yeah, you were supposed to do that. He would say, well, that's mighty white of you.
I like that. I haven't heard that, but I like that.
When I'd say, Dad, I made my bed, and he was like, well, that's mighty white of you, because I had to do it anyway.
I might start using that.
I like it.
How about, well, this is still used, champagne taste on a beer budget or beer pocketbook, right? Mm-hmm. My mother used to say, because she worked for a Pathmark supermarket, my mom used to say, you got champagne taste on my Pathmark pocketbook. That was a big one in the house. If you wanted something like Jordache and Sassoon, or if you wanted those designer jeans or the Nike sneakers rather than the Sears, my mother used to say, you got champagne taste on my Pathmark pocketbook.
Oh my God, my parents never said anything. They just said, okay, and then when they gave it to me, it was like cat heads. They just bought me the knockoff and didn't even say anything, and I'd go, I want Nikes.
Yeah.
Well, you got Nikes, the Walmart Nikes.
Yeah. Well, we used to get the Sears sneakers and cry, because we lived in a town, unfortunately, where it was the haves and the have-nots. There was this highway called Montauk Highway. South of that was all the doctors and lawyers and people that lived on the water, on the bay. Mm-hmm. North of that was the wrong side of the tracks where I was. It was all the real working, middle-class, blue-collar people. But unfortunately, we had to go to school with these kids. So they're walking in with all kinds of fancy shit, and I'm walking in with Sears. So we used to beg my grandparents. We used to cry to them. We were spoiled brats from my grandparents. She bought us the Sears sneakers again. Then my grandparents would say, get in the car and take us and get us Nike or Jordache jeans. They spoiled the shit out of us so we wouldn't be ridiculed at school. My parents couldn't afford it. It's not that they didn't want us to have it. But thank God for my grandparents, or I probably would have been, my ass would have been kicked every single day in school.
See, I didn't have that reprieve.
You didn't have that safety net.
I asked for a denim, acid wash denim jacket, and I got a dark blue one from J.C. Penney that by the time I got into school with it on the first day, half of the buttons had fallen off.
What about when you acted like when you got too fancy for your own good? Did your parents ever say you're too big for your britches?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But britches wasn't even like a real, isn't britches like an English word?
No,
for pants?
I don't think so.
Because britches was out way before even our parents. Nobody called them britches.
It is a very old word. Oh, well, I guess technically, yes, it dates back to England because that's where, I guess, yeah.
And my dad used to
really
call
old.
jeans dungarees.
Yeah, no, we didn't have that.
My dad would say, put your dungarees away. And be like, dungarees? They're jeans. He never called them jeans. He always called them dungarees for some reason.
My dad always called them Levi's, no matter what they were. Put away your Levi's.
And what'd you guys call rubber boots?
I don't think I ever owned a pair of rubber boots until I was in...
Like galoshes. That's an old word.
no,
Nobody
we
says
didn't.
galoshes anymore.
No, they don't.
Right? What are they?
Wellies now.
What are they?
Wellies.
See, I'm out of the loop.
Or the generic rain boot.
All right. Yeah, we call them galoshes. Have you ever heard a term for women's underwear called bloomers?
Yes.
That's an expression my mom and grandmother would say.
Well, yes, and then when I was growing up, they were also the little stretchy things that we put on over our underwear as cheerleaders, so you wouldn't see our actual underwear.
Was that called a bloomer?
Yeah, we wore bloomers.
Really?
Uh-huh.
I always thought it was just an old-fashioned term for just regular panties.
No, I think, well, since we were discussing britches, bloomers was an old-fashioned thing that, like, down to the knees that women wore under their skirts, and they had ruffles on them.
Oh, okay.
So they were meant to, like, you know.
We're getting to the root of all of this,
Yes,
folks.
we are.
Now, you came up to the house today. Mm-hmm. You climbed 3 steps, and you got to, like, a little landing. And my front steps isn't really a porch. Because you don't have, like, chairs there. It's not big enough to be called a porch. What do you call that?
I call it a porch.
You do call it a porch.
Because it's covered. The chair part isn't relevant.
Okay, if it wasn't covered, what would you call it?
A stoop or
a stoop. All right.
Yeah, I have northern.
I only thought stoop was something out of like the tri-state New York, New Jersey, Connecticut area.
I think it mainly is, but I just got used to people around me calling it that.
Right. Because I said stoop one time when I moved here to somebody, and they looked at me like, stoop? And I'm like, yeah, the thing that's in front of your house with the steps.
Not a big, it's always a porch around here.
See, to me, a porch is something that's like big enough to put some chairs on and sit out on. That's a porch, like a wraparound porch or something, you know?
So what is it called when it's just like a covered entryway into the house?
We call that a portico.
Well, aren't you highfalutin?
That thing with the 2 beams and the cover, that's a portico.
I thought the portico was like on the front of the United States Capitol. I wouldn't.
Yeah, but that's a portico.
I mean, it's a nice house. You got a nice house, Charlie, but
that's what it's called, a portico.
Portico.
Yeah,
okay.
see, now
you are getting too big for
I'm
your
highfalutin,
britches.
folks. I'm highfalutin. Mm-hmm. So, what about you? Obviously, pantyhose. Do people still call them nylons?
Yes. Well, people don't call them anything anymore because I think, blessedly, pantyhose have gone the way of
right. Nobody wears them anymore.
Yes.
Because people don't feel like they have to cover up their legs. Like, it is what it is.
Yeah, it's not skin is no longer disrespectful.
Mm-hmm. Right, I agree with that. And we discussed this when you came in. What do you call that little thing you carry around?
My handbag?
See, it was always a pocketbook.
I remember calling it a pocketbook when I was a little kid.
You wouldn't call it that anymore?
No, I wouldn't.
Why? Do you feel old if you said that?
No, but I didn't say this downstairs, but I'll say it now. I think it also has a little bit to do with quality.
So if you like have a real fancy bag, it's not a pocketbook.
Yeah, I think like it's like a bag or a handbag.
Right.
So if you tell people you're carrying a handbag, you sound like you're fancy.
So if a pocketbook, it sounds like something off that Sears rack.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Exactly.
Has your grandparents or parents ever called a hot dog a Frankfurter?
No, I don't think so.
That was big up north, like, because Coney Island, when Nathan's opened, they always called them Nathan's Famous Frankfurters. They didn't call them hot dogs at first.
That's funny. No, it was always hot dogs because a big thing in our house was hot dogs and sauerkraut.
Okay.
And it was always hot dogs.
Now, once you got past my portico and came into the house, where were you then?
Well, obviously in your grand foyer.
No, the vestibule. That's an old word.
A vestibule, though.
It's in a store.
But no, a vestibule to me seems like more like a hallway, like smaller, like...
Like when you go into the store, the first set of doors, you're in that vestibule till you enter the store?
Yeah, that's a vestibule, exactly.
And it echoed in there, remember?
Yes,
I hated that because my mother would always... My mother's high-strung, as you probably all have gathered of all these shows. And my mother, you talk about child abuse, used to take us school clothes shopping and fat shame us that we gained weight over the summer. And she would scream in the vestibule, "Nobody told you to eat yourself to death, all God goddamn summer. And it would echo in that vestibule. So even the word vestibule brings back bad memories of going in that echo chamber and having her, she'd yell on the way out with a cigarette hanging out of her mouth, "That's it, no more." Like after she said she felt the school shopping was done, she would scream, "That's it," in the vestibule, and it would echo, and everybody would look at her like, this woman's fucking crazy. So the word vestibule brings back bad memories for me.
I just have this picture of your mom holding you and by your arm, your wrist, and your front. Oh my God!
The three of us, yeah. She would fat shame us right in the store. Scream, I'm going to bring you to the husky section.
My husband's brother always had to shop in the husky section, and they shamed the shit out of him for that too.
See, nowadays they wouldn't even have a section called husky.
No, they don't.
Right? Mm-mm. But how come they still have petite?
Well, because petite refers to height rather than width.
Wait. Mm-hmm. All right. Okay. I was going to say, how did they get away with... But yeah, I remember, I never had to go, and thank God, this is the only time in my life where I'm carrying extra pounds. I was a thin kid, but my mother, just because I went up a size, but through natural growth, would equate it to me eating myself to death all summer.
Did she... I can also imagine your mother lining you up in front of the mirror and doing like the crotch pull.
Oh,
and going,
yeah.
Oh, plenty of room in there, Charlie.
Yeah, exactly. It was the worst. I still have nightmares when people mention back to school. It brings back like PTSD shit for me. And you know what my parents called elementary school? Grammar school. You ever hear that expression?
Yes, yeah, grammar school.
We never used grammar school. It was primary or elementary.
Elementary is what you use. The big thing in my house was it was junior high. So even though we had middle schools, my mom always called it junior high.
Us too. We always had junior high. It was even called junior high.
Well, yeah, but in middle schools are 6th through 8th, where junior
we had 7 through 9.
Yeah. And because of that, I wasn't allowed to go to homecoming my 9th grade year because my mom said I didn't belong in high school. I should have been in junior high.
Right. Yeah, that's weird that we had our freshman year of 9th grade in a different building than the high school. It was very odd. Yeah.
Yeah, you need.
They don't do that anymore.
You need some room to grow up a little bit.
Yeah, I guess it's
prepare you for the animals you're going to meet in the next building.
When my mom would get stressed out, she would say, "I'm going to commit Harry Carey."
Yes.
Did you hear that one,
Yes,
Joe? And that's basically what it was like a suicide thing that the Japanese soldiers used in World War II. They would take a knife and off themselves with. My mother used to say that. Could you imagine saying that to a kid now?
My dad used to say to me all the time, if you keep that up, you're going to get yourself into some deep kimchi.
It's so politically correct. Now, what about everybody calls it a salon now. It was a beauty parlor.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
But
beauty shop is what not even a parlor. Good, let's go up to the beauty shop.
See, up north, not only was it a beauty parlor, but it was a pizza parlor.
That sounds like heaven. Like they bring you a hot, fresh pizza while you are getting your hair done?
No. It was just the pizzeria was called the place where you went for pizza.
Oh, you got me all excited.
No. Two separate places. No,
yes,
there was
pizza parlor, yes.
It was a pizza parlor. But you don't hear, like in the last, 20 years, I've never heard pizza parlor anymore. People just call it a pizzeria or a pizza shop.
Yeah, that's true. I feel like things that are named specifically pizza parlor, they're named that. You know what I mean? For like old time's sake, like Bob's Pizza Parlor.
Yeah, parlor sounds nice, like you're having a real experience in there.
Yeah.
Rather than just a pizzeria, right? Or a pizza shop. A parlor sounds like the place to be, doesn't it?
Maybe that's why they changed the name, because they're not parlors anymore. It used to be Pizza Hut where you'd go and sit and play games, and now you walk up to the counter and they hand you the box and they're like, don't let the door hit you on the way out.
What did your parents or grandparents call like a promiscuous, flirtatious woman?
A floozy.
A floozy, that's right. That's what I have.
Or a hussy. I heard that a lot from my mom.
Yeah, they didn't call them the other things.
You little hussy.
Yeah, hussy. Floozy was a big one. See? But again, you're not going to go calling someone a hussy or a floozy now.
Maybe we should. I mean, that's much nicer than the words that they are using now.
I think we should bring back a lot of these terms.
Yeah.
We talked about lollygag, and there was also don't go dilly-dallying.
Oh, dilly-dallying, we heard a lot.
Nobody dilly-dallies anymore. Well, they do, but they don't, because nobody calls it that.
We'd all be happier if we dilly-dallied a little bit more.
And, of course, shenanigans and malarkey, which are, pretty close to my heart. My book, A Whole Lot of Shenanigans, in this podcast. Joe Biden said it the other night. That's a bunch of malarkey. And people were Googling it like crazy because young people don't know what malarkey is.
Where I grew up in a Polish, German, Ukrainian household, shenanigans and malarkey weren't big on our list of...
Right. We didn't say it much either, but it's a word now that both words are very popular. with the young crowd. A lot of people like to use the word shenanigans and malarkey.
Is that true?
Yeah.
I don't hang out with the young crowd, being old myself.
You got to get in with the in crowd. My grandmother always used to say when I was acting up, stop being a pill.
I've heard that too.
Have you ever been called a pill?
Yes, I have.
I think that's in a Pink song. She says something about being a pill. I heard that a few years ago, and I'm like, oh, she must have been called that as a kid by her grandmother or something.
She was taking a pill?
No, it's being called a pill.
Maybe.
Correct me if I'm wrong, you Pink fans out there, but I'm pretty sure she says that in a song.
I mean, she's in our age group.
That's true. So you're outside. What do you use? What do you call the machine that cuts the weeds?
A weed whacker?
Okay. Or a trimmer. Right?
I think a trimmer's different than a weed whacker.
But what it used to be called? It used to be called a weed what?
Whacker?
Weed eater.
Oh, we never... that was the name brand, right?
Oh, was it the name brand? I know.
Maybe. I don't know.
People still call it that. I see it on the thing, and I'm like, it's so like 70s to say weed eater.
I remember that, but we always called it the whacker, the weed whacker.
How about another, thing for like when you have a portico? Instead of being highfalutin, you are hoity-toity.
Yeah.
You ever use hoity-toity?
I haven't myself, but yes.
Where'd you hear that? Is it the
Probably
family?
My grandma, yeah.
So these are it's amazing how words change from generation to generation, isn't it? What do you call an inexperienced person that's like overconfident? Like
wet behind the ears?
Or an actual noun?
A person that, I don't know.
It starts with a W. A young whippersnapper.
Oh, I was going to say buck, but that doesn't start with a W.
A young buck.
A whippersnapper.
You young buck.
That's really old.
A whippersnapper,
I bet your great-grandparents said whippersnapper.
I used to hear it. I had a boss that used to say, young that called us whippersnappers in the 90s.
What was wrong with your boss?
Yeah, maybe he was wrong. Now, this is one that maybe is coming back because all the hipsters are buying records again. My grandmother, when I would repeat myself or keep asking for something, she'd say, you sound like a broken record.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I think that could come back because vinyl is in again.
It could.
You think that could ever make it back?
Has it ever gone out? I feel like people still say that quite frequently.
Yeah, but the kids don't even know what a record is. So if you said if you told your
say
daughter
it
you
not
sound
even
like a
knowing.
broken record, she wouldn't know what you're talking about.
She also doesn't know what I mean when I say go put on your purple T-shirt.
What about your grandparents? Did your grandmother ever wear a house coat?
Yes.
My grandmother lived in house coats.
But then my parents lived in Hawaii for a while. That's where I was born. So then once we came back from there, it was always the muumuu.
I'm thinking of getting a house coat. I would feel very comfortable in a house coat.
What size shoe do you wear? Because I will get you the fuzzy slippers to go with it.
I would feel free in a house coat. I might not look good, but it would be liberating.
See, guys don't get it because house coats are your life in general. All your clothes are like house coats.
Right.
When you're a woman, you got bras, nylons, bloomers.
No, you got brassieres.
Brassieres, nylons, bloomers, corsets, all this crap we have to put on.
Girdles. I remember the girdle. My grandmother wore a girdle.
Yes. And back in the day, sanitary belts.
Sanitary belts?
Yeah.
What was that?
It was a belt you wore around your waist, and it attached by hooks to the pad in your underpants.
Come on.
Nope, not kidding.
A sanitary hook?
But it was a belt with hooks.
Belt?
Yes. But anyway, when you get home and you take all that off and put on your house coat.
It was liberating. That's what I'm thinking. If I walked around in like a robe or a house coat.
You're walking around like that right now.
I'm wearing shorts and a T-shirt. You're having people think I'm wearing a dress.
But how constricting is that? Seriously.
Because I got underwear on and stuff like that.
You don't have to have underwear on.
When you have
There's a tablecloth on this table.
When you have company.
Okay.
No, I always wear underwear. I always wear underwear.
You put on your bloomers and waited out on the portico for me today?
No, I don't understand. I can understand women not wearing underwear, but I don't understand how men don't wear underwear. Because
I would think it's the opposite way around.
No, because men need the support to hold everything in place. Women don't have that.
Correct, but women also have things that...
Right, but at certain times.
Always.
Well, always, yeah, but I'm saying, I don't know, as a man, you want everything to be held in place. You don't want it flip-flopping.
Well, see, that's a personal preference. Some guys like them dangling in the wind, I think.
Nah, I can't do that.
Look at those Scots.
Yeah, with the kilts?
Yeah.
But don't they wear a bloomer under that? You're telling me they wear nothing under that?
Nothing.
See,
That's where Tom Petty got his idea for that song "Free Balling."
See, You had me there for a minute.
He almost.
See, I feel like I'm
almost
missing
went
out
with
now.
it.
I feel like I'm constricting myself.
You
in
really
life.
are.
Maybe I need
You really
to.
are. Maybe you need to experience it. And if you went camo in a house coat and then stepped outside and the breeze blew up, it might be very refreshing.
All right, I'm thinking about this now. Well, we're going to go up to the mountains in a few weeks. So I might have to air out.
That might be a good thing to do. Not many people around to
Right,
witness
but
it.
then you got to worry about deer ticks and stuff like that.
A
Yeah.
little bit of baby oil. They pop right out.
Now, you know what? I was always called a refrigerator. My grandparents, I guess, because they had one, they always said, "Shut that ice box."
Yeah,
they
ice
still
box.
called it an ice box.
Ice box.
Even my parents said it from time to time, and I don't think my mother ever had an ice box. She wasn't old enough.
No, my mom said it. Ice box.
What do you call a rundown piece of junk car?
A jalopy?
A jalopy. Do people still say jalopy?
No, they do not. I believe they say, what do they say? A hoopty.
A hoopty. That's right. It's a hoopty. What do you like better, hoopty or jalopy?
Hoopty, I think.
You really like the hoopty?
I do like hoopty.
Do the hoopty. Oh, no, it's the Humpty Hump.
That's yeah.
My mom used this a lot when you acted foolish. You're a twit.
Oh, God, yes.
You don't hear twit anymore.
No, you don't.
But
well, wait. If you're on Twitter, are you a twit?
You tweet. You don't twit.
But are you a twit if you're on Twitter?
You might be. But I confused it one time. I didn't know what the word was. I remember being like 10 years old, and I said to my sister or brother, "You're a twat," instead of twit. And my mother and father looked at me like, "What did you say?" I go, "He's a twat," because my mother always said twit, but I got the vowels mixed up, and I kind of...
I was puzzling that over if those were on equal insulting grounds, but I think twat's a little bit worse. Unless you're in England, and then twat is quite normal, I think. It's just an everyday...
What did your grandparents or parents call a turntable that played records?
A turntable, I think.
Victrola.
I was just going to say Victrola, but I think I might be I don't think they actually said that.
That was actually a brand name, but that became like Band-Aid to bandages.
Yeah.
Victrola is what everybody called it. Then when you graduated and the turntables and stereos got better, they called it a hi-fi.
That's what it was. We had the hi-fi, but my dad would say, "Put a record on the hi-fi."
Put a shrimp on the Barbie.
I had to. We were doing some clean out in my parents' garage a couple weekends ago, and I got to explain to my daughter an 8-track.
Oh, those things were...
Found a whole box full of 8-tracks.
Do you have a player?
No.
Get a player and play them. Get it off eBay.
The only one I took home with me is the soundtrack to A Clockwork Orange, just because I thought that was hilarious.
I thought 8-tracks were better than cassettes because you could skip right to the song you wanted on the 8-track, where the cassette you had to wait and fast forward and rewind. The 8-track got you right to the track you wanted.
See, you are definitely much older than me because I have no actual knowledge of how they worked. I just remember my grandmother...
popping them in.
Yeah.
We didn't have an 8-track player, but I remember going in my friends' parents' cars and stuff, and they had them in there. I remember them just pressing a button and getting to the song. It was like the CD ahead of its time.
Yeah, I
where
don't
you could
even
just go to
remember
the... Yeah, it was pretty cool.
I just remember the holder that was over the transmission column, and it had like these 8 tracks lined up in it.
What do you call someone who just lays around? What are they doing? They're lazy. Starts with an L.
A layabout?
A loafer. Or loafing. They're loafing. Nobody says loafing anymore.
No, nobody
There's not many
does say
loafers anymore. Do you even call the shoes loafers anymore?
No.
No, the loaf, except for bread, is gone, huh?
Yeah. Why were the shoes called loafers?
Probably because you loafed around in them, and they were like casual.
Okay.
Yeah, so there might be a connection there.
I do have a couple of pair of loafers.
You
If
do?
I wear them, I call them loafers.
Do you put a penny in them? Are they penny loafers?
No, they are not penny loafers.
Did people really put pennies in them?
Yeah. Oh, I remember that. I had pennies in mine. You know what I wore to middle school for cheerleading with my bloomers?
What's that?
Saddle shoes.
Saddle shoes, yeah, those multicolored, like
black
white
and white.
black and white.
Yeah.
Like Greece. They wore them in Greece. Yeah.
We still wore those.
We sold a lot of them in my first job at Herman Sporting Goods when I was a kid. All the cheerleading squads came in and bought them. I remember them.
We had to wear saddle shoes.
Here's one that my grandfather always used, and then when I worked at the parking lot, I used it all the time. You're running a Mickey Mouse operation.
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
Do people still say Mickey Mouse operation?
They do. I believe so.
Because that parking lot, folks, where I worked at, where I wrote the book about, was a Mickey Mouse operation.
Yeah, except now you might say it to a millennial and they get confused and think you mean something overly expensive and fun. Yeah,
like it's Disney World, like it's a Mickey. Oh, it's a fun operation.
Yeah.
You remember when flip-flops were called thongs?
Yes, but we never used that word in my home.
They were called thongs and something else. Flip-flops, thongs.
Slaps, I've heard people call them.
Yeah. Well, in Florida, they were big, so you just called them flip-flops?
We had all-season flip-flops.
Now, if two people were known to do everything together, what were they called?
Frickin' frack.
Or maybe this predates you.
Oh, something in Andy.
No.
Amos and not
The twins. The Bobbsey twins.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's
pretty
definitely
old,
my
right?
parents. Yeah.
Every time you were like together with somebody for a lot of those two, they're like the Bobbsey twins.
Yeah, but my mom all the time was like, "Here come frickin' frack."
All the young people out there that listen to a bunch of Malarkey are now on their phones Googling Bobbsey twins, Bobbsey.
FRIC and FRAC.
Yeah, frickin' frack. You're right. What else? What are some of the things you have?
Well,
Because I'll go on and on here.
I would come out and go, "Mom or Dad, there's something on my dress," and my dad would go, "Oh, that'll never be noticed from a trotting horse."
That is awesome.
Or he'd pick something off the rack and it had a mar on it, and he'd go, "This will never be noticed from a trotting horse."
That is awesome. Instead of from afar.
Yeah, exactly.
That is good. Where did he get that from?
I have no idea, but it was in.
We might have to follow up on that because that might be a Buffalo thing.
I always thought it had something to do with the military, but I don't know. But also, just Victorian people riding around. Yeah.
What about when you lived like a great life, like you were living like a carefree existence? What did your parents say? You're living the life of what?
Oh, Riley.
Riley, right.
Yeah.
But you know what? I thought it was based on, people said it, because there was a TV show, The Life of Riley, in the 40s and 50s, but the expression Life of Riley, my mother always said, "You're living the life of Riley over there." It actually comes from a popular song of the 1880s, in which the title character describes what he would do if he suddenly became wealthy. He would live the life, his name was Riley, he would live the life of Riley. But I always thought it was the TV show, didn't you?
I don't even remember. I remember now you telling me The Life of Riley. For some reason, I want to say I thought it had something to do with the guy on MASH. Was his name Radar
O'Reilly.
There. I always thought it had something to do with that, because my dad and I watched MASH every day.
But we're deep in the malarkey today.
We really are. And that is, that's a side topic, like when your parents would say these weird things to you, and if you didn't ask what it meant, what you thought they were talking about.
But I'll tell you, we were listening, weren't we?
We were.
My grandmother called an ottoman a hassock.
I've heard that, but we didn't call it. We weren't hoity-toity enough to have ottomans or hassocks.
We carried that hassock right under the portico into the vestibule.
I'm sure you did.
How about victuals for food? Like a snack. Bring me my victuals.
That's like Charleston 1772.
There was a restaurant in Smyrna up until a couple of years ago called Victuals. Right here in Smyrna.
Seriously?
On South Cobb Drive. Yeah.
Victuals.
Bring me my victuals.
That one's really old.
How about kerfuffle?
I have heard that one before.
The only one I ever hear...
She got herself into quite a kerfuffle.
Judge Judy uses that a lot, if you ever watch Judge Judy, which I don't, but on occasion when I've seen her, she does say that a lot.
That's funny, because I wouldn't have remembered that, but there was something right about that word coming out of your mouth with your accent, and Judge Judy says it the same way. So
kerfuffle.
I think that accent, kerfuffle, it makes it just sound better.
When you were acting like a wise ass, what did your parents call you? You were a... Starts with a W also.
I don't know.
A Weisenheimer.
Oh, no.
You never heard Weisenheimer?
I've heard it, but no, we never.
How about a wiseacre?
Wiseacre, yes.
You never got called a Weisenheimer?
No, never.
Oh, I would get that. You're acting like a real Weisenheimer.
I don't remember my parents ever saying anything to me like that.
Wow. How about like it or lump it? Kind of like take it or leave it?
Yeah, I've heard it.
You never heard like it or lump it?
I have heard it, but no,
it wasn't used. How about you're cruising?
For a bruising. Yep.
Mm-hmm. All right, what else you got?
Like when somebody was very clingy, my dad would say, "She's on you like white on rice."
White on rice, yep. Nobody says that anymore either.
No,
But actually, I've heard it in the last 15 years, I would say, but not recent. But then again, I don't go out much.
There was one. Did we talk about this? My dad used to say all the time, like, black is the ace of spades. And I read somewhere or something, people thought that was actually racist. And then I looked it up, and it's not.
No, I've never.
I forget what it actually means, but he used to say that all the time. It's his.
Yeah, I've heard it. I think my grandfather used to say that too.
Like in the dark.
Yeah, in the dark,
yeah.
right. Mm-hmm. How about? Do people still say you're as slow as molasses?
Yeah,
they do. Mm-hmm. People still know what molasses is, even.
Yeah, people are affirming themselves with molasses because now we can't have high fructose corn syrup. So we're going back to more natural
agave,
flavors.
which is in my iced coffee here.
Yes, and molasses.
And here's one my brother brought up that was said so much as a child by my mom that I don't know how I forgot it. When he mentioned it to me yesterday, I was laying in bed last night. I couldn't fall asleep. I was laughing for the entire night. My mother, you know how like kids get annoying and they go, "Where you going, Mommy? What are you doing? Where you going?" When we used to say to my mother, she would get up from the couch to go somewhere, we would say, "Where you going?" She would say, "Up the cow's ass for a milkshake. Do you want chocolate, vanilla, or strawberry?" So I thought my mother made it up the cow's ass for a milkshake. So my brother said this yesterday. I was crying all day. I look it up. It's actually a thing.
No, it's
my mother
not.
didn't make it up. Google it. Up the cow's ass for a milkshake. But I think my mother took it another level and said, "Do you want anything, or do you want chocolate, vanilla, or strawberry?" Come on, that's a good one.
That is a good one, especially thinking of a mom saying that to her little kids.
Now, are you going to use that? If your husband says, "Where you going?" You can say,
you know what's
gonna
big in
start laughing.
I would I hope I'm quick enough to come up with that because my thing is Nunya. Celine knows
Right.
Nunya.
You couldn't say that to your
Where are you
kid,
going,
right?
Mom? And I'd go Nunya, and she's like, "I know, none your business."
Is she too young to say up the cow's ass for a milkshake?
Probably.
See, we were
but-
like 4 and 5, my mother. It's like there was no standards back then. You could say anything to a kid.
Oh yeah.
Abuse the fuck out of them.
Yeah. There were no car seats or seat belts.
Couple more years, you could say up the cow's ass for a milkshake to her.
Well, it's all perception. I can say it to her now, and she can say it in my house. But if she says it to her teacher, she might get in a little bit of trouble.
Here's one that the only person that I know that says it. It's an Italian thing, and there's this comedian called Vic DiBitetto. He's the Milk and Bread guy. Remember the video Milk and Bread? When in an Italian family, when you would get into like a discussion and you would say something that the other person didn't agree with, instead of just saying "I disagree" or "forget about it," they would say "your sister's ass." And this guy Vic DiBitetto uses this in his routine, the way he grew up. My grandparents and on my Italian side, my mother used to say all the time. He would say something that they didn't agree with. Your sister's ass.
Yeah, but I had a sister. So
I had a sister too.
So what did that
well, as a
imply
kid,
about your sister?
Well, yeah, as a kid, I was like, "What about her ass?" Like, like her sister's ass.
What do you want me
But
to
it was
do
just one of
to
those
her
things
ass?
like, "Get out of here, your sister's ass. Get out of here." It was just to brush you
Your
off.
family was much cooler than mine.
Well, go shit in your hat. You never heard "go shit in your hat"? My grandmother used to say that. Go shit in your hat.
Shit in your hat.
You never heard "go shit in your hat"?
No.
You were like censored family. You had nice sayings without cursing.
Yeah, but did I ever tell you the story about my beloved Grandma Lear and my nickname? And I thought I was so special because I was the only one of her grandkids that had a nickname.
No. What was your nickname?
Dupayash.
What does that mean?
Asshole in Polish. I would brag to everybody about how my grandma loves me so much. I'm the only one with a nickname. And then after she died, my aunt told me what it meant.
Well, you know what's funny is that when we acted up as kids, like my grandparents would speak English, fluent English, but then when they would talk in front of us when they didn't want us to hear what they were saying, they would switch to Italian. But sometimes when we acted up, they would call us a vastazu.
What's that?
My wife and I we used Italian English conversion apps on the, I think it's a slang term in Sicilian meaning like a brat, but I really have to find out I think it's a dialect of Sicilian Italian. I don't think it's an exact Italian word, but they would always call us a vastazu. So we call Bernie, our dog, that when he acts up. You little vastazu.
Are you sure it's one word?
Yeah.
It's not vasta, like go something to yourself or something
No, I don't
like
think
that?
so. But we've tried. There's only one person that might know, this guy Gino from Italy that we know. He's Sicilian, but we keep saying we got to call him and ask him because we got called that whenever we acted up by my grandparents. And it could be like your situation. They'd be calling us an asshole.
Yeah, like I said, I was going to say maybe she was telling you to go you-know-what yourself. And,
what about you can kiss my ass in Macy's window? Instead of just saying "kiss my ass," it was
Yeah,
"kiss
no.
my ass" in Macy's window.
No.
Because it's like a high traffic area in New
yes,
York.
everyone would see it.
See it.
Yeah,
Everybody
no.
would see it. How about you don't know shit from Shinola?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Is that big?
Yeah.
Did you hear that growing up?
I did, and I also, something I don't know is exactly the same, but if I'd go, God, I was so close, my dad would go, close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades.
That's right. Oh, my God. How about I brought you into this world and
I
I'll
will
take you
take
out?
you out of
now,
it.
could you imagine saying that to a kid now?
No, well,
Wouldn't like the Child Protective Services be knocking at the door if you threatened to take the kid out?
not just for that, but yeah, that would get you looked at a little cross-eyed.
You know, who do you think you are, the Queen of Sheba?
Yes.
Who was the Queen of Sheba? We have to look that up. I always wondered who the Queen of Sheba was
I
that they
don't
referred to all the time.
Yeah, I don't know. I never looked that up either.
My sister always got that when she thought she was better. My mother said, "What are you, the Queen of Sheba?"
Yeah, that's sort of like hoity-toity.
Well, who died and left you, boss? Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
What else we got? Hold your horses.
Yeah.
That's probably still used, though, right?
No, I think so.
Schitt's Creek without a paddle.
Yes,
Schitt's Creek
yes.
without a paddle.
Did your parents ever talk to you about whether or not you were old enough to car date?
No.
Like
Car
go,
date?
like go with a guy or a girl or whoever on a date in a car?
No, it was never called a car date. It was just dating or having a girlfriend.
And that's what it was called when I was little. But my mom would be like,
Like
we're
when you
never gonna let you car date.
So that car date is when you graduate from them dropping you off at like the roller rink to meet the guy rather
I think
than
so.
getting in the car with
leaving
him?
on your own. Yes, and I believe there was also an implication there that untoward things happen in the car. But
Wow. All right. Have you ever been called or heard the term crepe hanger?
yes,
Somebody who makes like a big production. And my dad used it all the time. It's one who always looks at the bad side of things and is morbid or gloomy.
like the funeral crepe, the black.
Exactly.
Yeah.
In olden days, crepe was hung on the door of a deceased person's home. So that's where it originated. But every time you whined about something, my mother used to say, or my dad, "You're a crepe hanger."
That's a good saying. I might start using that one.
You might use crepe
Yeah,
hanger.
I like crepe hanger.
I'm going to use up the cow's ass for a milkshake all the time now. I cannot believe that I totally blocked that out of my mind. And my brother was just banging. My brother mentioned my brother mentioned a bunch of these that I forgot, like a few that I mentioned today. But the cow's ass for a milkshake. All right, here's one. You know that patriotic song? Dun, 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 dun. It's some kind of march at the 4th of July. It's a patriotic song. There's a song my dad used to sing. Oh, the monkey wrapped his tail around the flagpole to see his asshole. And I thought he made that up too. And I looked that up yesterday, and it was a song that someone wrote to. Yeah, it was like Weird Al before Weird Al.
Yeah.
Changed the lyrics of the march and sang a song about a monkey wrapping his tail. My dad used to sing it, and we thought he made it up, but it was actually a thing back in like the 50s about a monkey wrapping his tail around the flagpole to see his asshole.
Yeah, I never heard that.
You
one
never heard the
before.
monkey song?
No, and I'm not really making out the march that you're singing.
I'm not good at
Recognize that at all.
close that door, you're letting the flies in.
My dad always says, "Close the door, you're letting the air out."
Or the air out. We didn't have air conditioning, so that didn't apply to us.
But when I was little, I didn't even equate it with the air. I thought he meant like the actual air that we were breathing in the house. And then I got a little older and was confused because there was also air outside. So I wasn't sure why we couldn't let our air out into their air.
Have you ever been told as a kid to go fly a kite or play in traffic?
Oh, yeah.
Imagine telling a kid now, go play in traffic.
Yeah.
Like, the times have changed.
There are so many things.
You couldn't tell your kid to go play in traffic.
No, you
Because
could
if they
not.
went and told the teacher, you'd be in trouble. Mm-hmm. Isn't it a shame? Have we gone too far?
Yes.
Okay, I'm glad you agree.
Yes.
Did
you know that I was in Facebook jail?
Yes, I was going to ask you about that. You said something about... Tell the listeners what you said. You commented on something and somebody got offended.
I don't know that somebody got offended. I think it's the Facebook algorithm.
Okay.
And it's ridiculous because somebody commented about or made a joking post about how guys never flush the toilet. And it was like, why, guys, why? And my response with a bunch of smiley faces was because men are animals. So they warned me that was hate speech underneath their standard.
What?
So then I posted it on my own thing about it, and a friend said something, so I was like, let's test this out. And I typed the same exact thing, but women are animals, and they threw me right in Facebook jail and said I was spreading hate speech.
And how long were you in jail?
24 hours.
And then they say, did you have to click on something to get back in and say you agree that you won't do anything anymore?
No. But the first time I did click on something saying, I accept your decision, because I was like, okay, whatever.
Right.
Big deal. I don't care. And then they said something like, by accepting our decision, you can't appeal again. And it was so vague that it seemed like they were telling me I could never question one of their decisions ever.
Shit.
But then when they got me the second time, they said, do you want us to review this? And I said, yes.
But meanwhile, neo-Nazis have Facebook pages.
I mean, seriously.
But you said something about the toilet seat.
It's just like, go play in traffic. And they were like, hate speech, like, take this down. And I'm like, no.
Yeah, as much as we want to be
speech.
sensitive to different people, we don't want to relive and rehash the mistakes that have been made in the past in this country. I think we've really crossed a line where you can't be funny anymore. You have to think, even especially doing a podcast or writing a book. Do you know how many times I want to say something which I think would be funny, which really wouldn't be offensive, but I'm thinking there's somebody out there that's going to take this the wrong way.
Yeah.
Could you imagine being a stand-up comic nowadays, or like I did on my TV Transgressions episode 2 weeks ago? I named all the television shows and cartoon characters that would never make it to the air today because of the offended world that we live in, like All in the Family and things like that.
Oh, yeah, there would be a bunch.
And something like All in the Family was just meant to point out what an idiot Archie really was, but even using the phrases that he did today would never make it to TV because people would be too offended by it. But this is the world we live in.
Yeah. I mean, that's what...
It's not funny anymore.
I think she stuck to you like white on rice is funny, but I don't say it because I'm afraid somebody might take offense that it's somehow directed at somebody Asian.
No, but it's just the white on the right. Like, it's so on there that, yeah.
And the that's mighty white of you.
Yeah. No, see, the black is spade. It's black is spade.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah, that's not, but you don't mean it like that.
No,
You're just
you don't.
describing what something looks like, or, yeah, it's crazy. We just have to start minding our own beeswax. Remember that one?
Yeah.
Why do we say beeswax?
This is an A and B conversation. See your way out of it?
Yes. I'll give you something to cry about.
Oh, God. Oh, God.
What about when you asked your mom and dad something? They wouldn't say yes or no because they didn't want to disappoint you and they didn't want to say yes. So what would they say? We'll see.
Yeah, I say that a lot.
We'll see means daughter. Like, well, I'm putting you off and it's going to be a no.
She recognized that already at 4. She's like, that means no. And I'm like, okay, then no.
What about when someone tried to act like they were better than you? My mom would always say, he acts like his shit doesn't stink.
Oh, God, yes. But I still say that, too.
Yeah, that's pretty...
I've said that to my daughter. You act like your shit
then you could say the milkshake.
She's like, but it's very stinky, Mommy. And I'm like, I know, it's just a saying.
And then you think I was born yesterday. I was born on a Monday, but not...
Oh, I still
like
say I was born I was born at night, but not last night.
Who do you say that to?
Anybody that's treating me like I'm stupid. I may have been born at night, but it wasn't last night.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
Yeah, and how about the one, I don't remember exactly how they'd say it, but you and the horse you rode in on.
Oh, like, fuck you and the horse you rode in on.
Yeah, but my dad would say it to us, so it would be like, take this and the horse you rode in on and get out of here. Like...
The horse you rode in on. People don't use the word pipsqueak anymore. A little pipsqueak. Mm-mm. Like that little bagel guy from Long Island.
Oh, my God.
He's a pipsqueak. He's a pipsqueak.
But he would be hilarious to go drinking with, don't you think?
I don't know, but I tried to get him...
sit with for afar, because you'd probably always have to be the friend that ends the fights
He's extending his 15 minutes of fame, that Chris Morgan. He's been on several... like really big podcast. He's been on television shows. He was on a wrestling thing the other day. He signed a contract to box, celebrity box, all because he blew up at a bagel store. I tried to get him on the show.
Yeah.
And I left him messages, but he never got back to me. I guess I wasn't big enough. I was not highfalutin enough for him.
He saw your portico and did not think it grand enough for his presence.
But I won't have a conniption over it. Remember that word?
Yeah,
a conniption?
People still, or don't have kittens, my mother would say.
Right. Or a cow. Or don't have a cow.
Well, yeah, we all said that to each other.
What other expressions you got on you anymore on your list?
That's my list, but now as we talk, I keep thinking...
That's the way the cookie crumbles, my grandmother would say when something went bad, and that's the way the cookie crumbles.
Yes.
Is that still used? I don't hear that anymore. See, I'm asking you because you're out in society more than I am. I kind of live this protected, sheltered
You're
life.
giving me a lot more credit than I deserve.
Well, you're out with people in the courts and in public and lunches and you in restaurants.
Yeah, and I'm really worried now that somebody in court is going to ask me where I'm going, and I'm going to be like, up a cow's ass for a milkshake, and then it's going to be a judge that I just said that
But
to.
then you have to ask them if they want chocolate vanilla or strawberry. You want to make them feel like you're bringing back something, right? Don't go out with your school clothes on. Remember, you had school clothes, and then you had play clothes.
No.
Because we only had like 5 or 6 outfits for school because, we didn't have a lot of money. So you protected those school clothes with everything you had. And when you came home from school and wanted to go out and play, you changed because you didn't want to mess up your jeans or your good shirt.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if, kids don't go out and play at all anymore.
No,
so
they
they
do
don't
not.
have to worry about school clothes. The school clothes was a big one. How about the word galoot? Your big galoot.
Yeah.
I call Cooper that.
Yeah.
My dog. Mm-hmm. And I think that was in a cartoon, the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer with that big, not lumberjack. What was he? The guy with the pickaxe. Yeah,
Yukon Cornelius.
They called him a big galoot or something and that's the last time I heard it.
I should know that because we watched that on repeat in my house.
And Emmett Otter.
Yes.
Whoops-a-daisy? Do people say that when they drop something anymore?
I don't know. I say it, so I guess
You
I
do?
feel, yeah. Whoops-a-daisy.
Is this making you feel old or young? Does it make you feel old that we know them or young that we don't use them anymore?
Well, and in some ways I'm confused because you're like whoopsie-daisy. I didn't realize that was considered
That's old. Of course.
I mean, it's old, but I didn't realize that people felt that way
because
about
who
it.
says it anymore? When was the last time you saw someone drop something? They go, whoops-a-daisy.
Well, I say it all the time because I have a child, and that's better than holy shit. I'd rather have a repeat whoopsie.
Well, even words like dirty, we used to say cruddy. You don't hear cruddy anymore.
Well, we said crappy.
Crappy, yeah. Or like, I guess old is like when you call a bathroom a powder room. Nobody calls it a powder room
Well, that's
anymore.
not true. A powder room is different than a bathroom.
Where are there powder rooms?
Powder rooms are generally like the half bathroom downstairs, like that your guests might go.
Well, that's what we have down here, but you don't powder in there. There's a toilet in there to pee.
What do you think the powder means in powder room?
Like to powder your nose.
Right.
But there
So it's
wouldn't be a
just a little-
toilet in there then. It would just be a
Well,
room
that's
with a
what I was gonna
mirror.
say. Sometimes it's just a room with a mirror,
Mirror
but
and a sink,
then
maybe.
it sort of graduated into the little half bath
Right.
downstairs. That's for the guests. Is the powder room?
See, I think once it has a toilet in it, then it's not a powder room anymore.
We need a real estate expert to call in on this. Are the lines busy?
Yeah.
Shirley? Can somebody pick
Anybody
up
out
line
there
two?
who might be a real estate agent, call us and tell us what the difference between a half bath and a powder room. See, I picture a powder room like having like a vanity with the lights around
Yeah,
it, with
I
maybe a
agree.
sink
I
with a
agree.
little. What do they call that thing you powder your face with? That little
A poof.
little cotton poof.
Yeah.
Maybe an assortment of those out. Maybe a couple of Andes candies in the dish.
Yes, I agree. But I
That's a powder
feel like
room.
that's when real estate agents are trying to sell a house, they might call it a powder room instead of a half bath
I
because
just-
it sounds hoity-toityer.
I just dated myself with Andes candies
Why?
because nobody eats it. My grandfather
Are
used
you
to
talking
put.
about Andes mints?
Yeah, the Andes mints. They
Yeah,
used to
those-
be called Andes candies, but now I guess they're called Andes mints now.
I mean, 6 to 1, half dozen to the other.
That's
That's
right.
one. Andes are still out there.
I know. They only like Big Lots sells them though.
Is that true?
Yeah, I don't see them
I
in
guess I'm
regular
not
stores
usually
anymore.
in the market for Andes candies.
I mean, they were old people's candy in the 80s when my grandfather was buying them. Like, young people don't buy Andes
I feel like my
candies.
mother, always had, and my
Weird.
mother is so bizarre about entertaining. Like, if she buys a dip, she has to scoop the dip out of its thing and put it in.
Oh, that's how we do it,
But
too.
the Andes candies, she never did. She put them right out in the box.
Because they had that nice tray.
Well, that's what, I mean, that always marked my mind because my mom did not change
Same
the
with the
container of
chocolate-covered
candies.
cherries had that nice tray that you would...
Who eats that crap?
We buy like 10 boxes every Christmas. We
my God,
devour
you
them.
guys are weird.
The
You're
Stella's cherries, dark chocolate.
Oh, you're weird. It's like
No, but you're
chocolate
thinking of
and
the
then liquid and then squishy and then it's a cherry.
There's different kinds though. We don't like the creamy center. That's for the liquid center with just the cherry and.
That's disgusting.
Oh,
The
those are
liquid,
good.
when you bite into it and the liquid squooshes into
I guess
your
you
mouth.
never ate Freshen Up gum.
No,
with
I
the
don't
liquid
like that
center.
either. But that was not as bad because you didn't also have the texture of the cherry in there.
That was we eat tons of those every Christmas. You're coming over for cherries.
I don't think so.
I'm trying to think if I have any more.
You and the horse you rode in on.
You're spazzing out.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
But that goes along with don't have kittens.
Don't have a kitten. So we hope you enjoyed some of these old sayings. And let us know in the comments if you... hey, what monkey see, monkey do.
Oh, yeah. Birds of a feather.
If you guys used any of these expressions, if they're bringing back memories, definitely leave a message for us in the comments, as you always do. Especially the young people. We want to know which one of these expressions, of these many that we discussed today, are really old, and are Jen and I old?
Useless as a tits on a boar. How about that one?
Is it boar or bull?
Boar.
Well, it could be bull, too, because a male boar... Yes, you're right. Useless as tits.
On a boar.
I can't believe... Oh, how about this one? If you had half a brain, you'd be dangerous. Do you remember that one?
Yes, I do.
I don't know how many times. Well, here's a dime. Call someone who cares.
Yeah.
See, that you'll never hear again.
No, you will not.
Because there are no more payphones. I saw a picture the other day on Facebook of like kids, teenagers at like I don't know if it was a trailhead to a park or something, and they were taking pictures of a phone booth.
I saw that too.
I mean,
and it said the line on it was like out on our historical trail of artifacts or something like
and it's
that.
Like,
yeah.
Are we really that old? How about my grandmother always called the garbage can a waste paper basket?
Yes.
Like you can only put waste paper in it, right? It was not just a garbage can.
And just so you know, like there are working payphones in other places. Like Costa Rica has a whole all of their payphones work.
Yeah, I remember. I used to do this thing, and it always worked. You know, down at the bottom of the payphone, there was like the box, and it had like a keyhole. We used to take a paper clip and stretch it out long ways, make it like a long stick. If you put the one end of the paperclip in the middle of the talking speaker and the other end in that keyhole, some electric shock used to happen where you didn't have to pay. It would make the noise in the phone where you didn't have to put the money in. You would get free calls.
Thieves and lollygags.
We did it all the time.
You and your friends, thieves and... No!
We did it.
Whoever thought...
Somebody told me that, and every time we would do it, it worked every time. If you had so in school, we had phone booths in the hallways, and so if you had to make a call, we would just take a paper clip, put it in the talking part of the thing, and then stick it in that keyhole, and it would make like that noise when you put the money in.
Yeah.
And we would call for free.
Oh my God! We did the thing that we always believed that if you whacked the receiver,
you would get the operator,
or that the money would come out if you just went, and that it would spit out some money.
Sometimes the phone would go dead for some reason at my house, like electrical storm or something. My mother would hit that handle up and down and yell, "Operator!" thinking like the operator was going to hear her. Meanwhile, the lines are down. I'm telling you, I grew up.
My mother used to go if she was on the phone and one of us picked up another thing, she would go, "Is this a party line?"
A party line. Nobody says. Everybody says cabinets now. Nobody says cupboard anymore.
No.
See, I kind of like cupboard. There's something nice.
But what if
to
your
it.
cups aren't in there? What if it's plates?
A plate bird.
That's why they went to cabinets. It's more inclusive.
How about a low-level cupboard or china cabinet? What do you call that?
Well, it depends on where it is and what you're using.
Well, some people call it a buffet. It's a credenza.
I thought a credenza was more like a desk, like open underneath.
Well, it could be like a cupboard style, too, for kids.
And see, that can also be a couch table, like a sofa table that you put behind a long couch.
Oh, is that what it's called, a credenza? I thought it was like a conversation piece.
I thought a credenza was a desk.
I never understood what a conversation piece is. Like my grandfather used to say that. Oh, that's a nice... It didn't have to be a piece of furniture. It could be it's a nice conversation piece. So he thought by hanging something that was like out of the ordinary, that when people came in, it was going to create conversation.
Yes, that's exactly what a conversation piece is.
But it never did. Nobody ever came in and talked about it.
Well,
do you have any conversation pieces at your house?
That's what our house is full of.
Your whole house is conversation pieces. Like what? Give me an example.
Because we collect stuff on our travels, so we have like a tribal mask used in an actual ritual in Guatemala.
So that couple that you hang out with, what are their names again?
Laura and Brent.
Oh, you switched it this time.
No, I didn't.
Oh, all right.
It's only Brent and Laura when Brent's in trouble.
So do Laura and Brent come over and strike up conversation about these pieces?
They did when we first met them.
Well, what about when you add new stuff? Do you have to show it to them, or do they say, wow, what is that?
Well, some things. I mean, if it's something hanging on the wall, they might notice. But we've been into sculptures lately, so... And I'm not a shower, but my husband will
that's
like,
the thing. I
come
always
back
wanted
here and look at this... conversation piece.
There you
we've
go. That's what
acquired.
I always wondered about a conversation piece. The owner of the conversation piece, do they have to bring up the piece,
No.
or is it's the whole purpose of a conversation piece is for someone else to bring up
Correct.
the conversation?
Yes, it is something that you put in your whole studio is a conversation piece. You just put it there thinking, and no, not even true. These aren't conversation pieces
No.
because these all mean things to you.
Right.
But a conversation piece would be something like a funky lamp that you just put there thinking that someone will notice it and go, oh, look at that funky lamp.
See, we don't have anything on the main floor of the house that really I'm going to have to talk to my wife after we record this that we need conversation pieces.
But your house is a conversation piece in and of itself because the floors glow like heaven. You have the shiniest, cleanest floors I've ever seen. That's a conversation piece.
Murphy's oil. No, I don't use Murphy's oil.
Snake oil?
No, I use the Swiffer Wet Jet.
If it was a
For wood
snake, it would
floors.
jump up and bit you. You remember that one?
Yes, you're
If
right.
there was a snake, it would have jumped up and bit you.
beat in the ass. See,
Your family
we were very
was
vulgar.
very vulgar.
We
yes,
always, because it was
yes.
very rough around the edges. Hey, you know why and you know what's funny to the listeners out there before we wrap it up is that I have touched on my family on this show on certain things, but I haven't really even scratched the surface. And I'm thinking of doing a book. That was my initial, book theme before I worked at the parking lot and kind of went with that. But I haven't even scratched the surface of these stories on this podcast. I could do a whole podcast just about family and growing up. It was, my brother and I say, how are we functioning adults? I mean, that's questionable.
You could seriously write a book just on stories of incidents with your mom out in public where you thought you would die of embarrassment and yet you lived.
Oh, all the time.
Like the whole,
because there was no filter.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have much of a filter, but I have self-control more than my mother had.
I can say that one thing about my parents. Neither one of them ever did anything like that in public. Like, of course, my sister and I were always mortified by
Right.
them no matter what, but not because...
They had some sort of filter on
Like,
them.
my mother never, would have me try on clothes and be like, maybe you need to go to the husky section.
Really?
Yeah, no. Mm-mm. Never they would... No.
Yeah, it's funny because, I'll switch the channel sometimes. Like I said, late in the afternoon, I'll put on the TV and I'll pass Dr. Phil or one of these shows, and I see these people come on crying about this shit. And, yeah, I guess you could call it abuse to some degree, but they would have never survived a week.
Oh, God. No.
They wouldn't have survived a week.
No.
And I'm not saying, as the generations go on, the parenting should get better and you should show more love and make it easier for every generation. But I feel like we're raising a bunch of softies out there.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I would say something that I thought was just brilliant to my dad, and he'd look at me and go, that and $2 will get you a Big Mac.
Yeah, or that and
Or
a quarter
something.
token will get you on the subway.
Yeah, his was that and $2 would get you something. Yeah, I mean, all the time.
And that's why, to wrap it up, my sister the other day, I was communicating with her. She had an issue at work where they laid off a lot of people at her job, and she got laid off. And I've been telling her for years, she's very artistically talented, to take a chance, do something with her creativity, open up a store, an Etsy store, anything. And she says, well, I don't really have the confidence. And I said, well, what do you think I have? She says, well, I said, you think I thought that people would read my book or listen to a podcast? You have to. And she says, and to me, I just want to grab her and say, look what we went through as kids. If we were trained and conditioned to fail. So not conditioned to fail, but we were not even expected to.
Your parents would look at you and basically say you're all a bunch of losers. How you even managed to get your shoes on in the morning is shocking.
If we went through all that, why are you afraid of failing at this age?
Yeah.
We've been through the worst already.
Yeah.
So that's what I try to get through, but sometimes it doesn't get through. So.
Yeah, we survived our parents. What else is there?
Exactly.
There's nothing to be afraid of.
It's just amazing. Like my brother says, functioning adults. I always say, well, for me, that's questionable, but he's done well for himself.
We're relatively functioning
Exactly.
on most days.
Well, Jen, this has been fun. I like the little trip down memory lane, and it's, I think, a perfect fit for our 1-year anniversary special. And a sincere thank you, because, when you're in the early stages of any project, you and Johnny B, and I will mention all the others at the end of the podcast after we tape this segment. But you guys really got the ball rolling for this podcast and really gave this podcast traction other than just hearing me. People like a variety and different stories and the interactions and banter back and forth. So really, thank you for your contributions to the show. And I hope that it won't be another 8 months before we have you back on.
Invite me. I'll come back anytime.
You're always invited. It's an open invitation for fun, food, and frolicking here at the King Spring studio.
As long as there's no gallivanting.
There won't be any gallivanting. Jen, really, thank you so much, and it was a great time as always.
Yes, sir.
All right, we'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye. So, folks, was that fun or what? Having Jen back here in the King Spring studio. She is a riot. And people always said they loved all of our guests and all of our phone guests, but they've always loved Jen for some reason. They said there's a good dynamic here. And I think people like to hear a male-female combination for some reason. They don't like when it's two guys sitting around or two girls sitting around. I read that a lot in the podcast community, but we definitely have a good sense of humor together and a good dynamic there. So I hope you enjoyed our chat there. Now, there was a couple of phrases that I forgot, and one of them my brother reminded me of. My grandfather, whenever we had music really loud on in the house, at my grandparents' house, he would say, "What do you got, a tin ear?" Now, we always thought, like, a tin ear, does he mean like a fake ear and we can't hear? But I actually looked it up, and this is a real expression. A tin ear means that you have insensitivity to and an inability to appreciate the elements of performed music or the rhythm, elegance, or nuances of language. So he actually knew what the hell he was talking about. But that was pretty common at my grandparents' house, asking if we had a tin ear. And also, one that I forgot, I don't know how, a famous expression, I think it's still used, when my mother always said when we would talk about somebody, "Oh, they don't got a pot to piss in," or a window to throw it out of, if you wanted to take it a step further. A pot to piss in and a window to throw it out of. So those are a couple more, but I really enjoyed our chat. Jen and I really had a good time, and she promised she'll be back on soon, and I have a couple of good ideas coming up for the fall, so I think you'll like a couple of the ideas we have coming up in the next few weeks. We still have a few weeks till fall. It definitely doesn't feel like it's even close out there if you step outside. So my next segment, folks, it was the most listened to episode, believe it or not. He was a phone-in guest. He is a Grammy Award nominated singer-songwriter. We had him on back in May, and he called into the show this week for our anniversary edition. I spent about 15 to 20 minutes with him, and I think you'll appreciate this segment as well. So enjoy it. My next guest, making his second appearance on the show, is a Grammy Award nominated singer-songwriter, and as you know, best known for his hit songs Steal Away and Hot Rod Hearts. Back in May, I had the pleasure of chatting with him for over an hour for our episode titled You, Me, and Robbie Dupree, which is our most listened to episode to date. Robbie Dupree joins us once again here on A Bunch of Malarkey. Robbie, thanks for taking a few minutes out of your day to join us for our anniversary episode. Welcome back.
Hey, Charlie. Thanks for having me.
So the summer's going all right for you? You have any upcoming shows or tours or anything in the fall?
Yeah, I have like random shows. I start August 24th in Atlanta.
Oh, wow.
And show in Long Island on September 7th. And thereabouts, then I have some Hudson Valley shows at Levon Helm's Barn in September, and the Falcon Arts in September, and also Los Angeles and Maryland, and like a smattering of gigs throughout until the middle of October.
Oh, that sounds great. Now, for the listeners, is there a place they can go to get information on these venues and tickets and stuff?
Yes, there is. Facebook is where most of it is. But this weekend or Monday morning, there'll be a lot of postings on my RobbieDupree.com website. Right now, they might not be up yet because some dates were filling in. So, but by Monday, I'm sure that we'll have everything up. So RobbieDupree.com under the touring banner.
All right, perfect. And the two places you mentioned first, Atlanta, where I am now, and Long Island, where I'm from. So that's great. You're visiting both of my stomping grounds.
Beautiful. Well, we're playing at the, I'm a guest with the Yacht Rock Review at
Chastain.
Chastain, right. That's on the 24th. That's the first one coming up. And I believe that's already sold out. That's about 6,000.
Yeah, they sell out quickly every year with that show.
Yeah, that's a great show. We really enjoy it. So last year was the first year I missed. I think I've been doing it like 6 or 7 years with them, and it's a great way to kick off the touring season for me.
I think you were there last year. Maybe the year before you weren't.
No, the year before I was there, and the year before we played at a beautiful big venue that was like a church with 3 balconies.
Oh, that's the, I know where it is, the Tabernacle.
The Tabernacle, yeah, that was great. But the show actually got too big for even that.
Right.
So they brought it to Chastain again. We had done that once before, earlier on, like maybe 5 years ago. But they're smoking now. So.
Well, I could say I saw you once I think I saw you once at Chastain and once at the Tabernacle.
Yeah, all good shows.
Yeah, excellent. So this is your second time on our show, our podcast. Now, are you a podcast listener in your free time, or is it something you're not too familiar with, or you don't really get into podcasts?
I'm familiar with it, but I seem to. It's a habit. It's an acquired habit.
Yes.
That I haven't acquired yet. So, I haven't gotten into it yet. But there are so many podcasts now that I'm interested in, and people that have them, and I'd love to spend some time listening to them again,
Yeah, I mean, before I started this show a year ago, my wife was constantly, you got to listen to podcasts, and I was like, I kind of knew what it was too, and I found that it's, like you said, it's an acquired thing. Either people love podcasts and that's all they talk about, or they don't really know much about it, or, just not into it. So it's like, you got to try to find the balance and get people to listen. But your show, the show you were on with me in May, really took off, and I really got a lot of feedback. I'm not sure if you got any feedback your way through your Facebook page or anything, but I mean, people of all ages, Robbie, and I was especially happy to see people that weren't even born yet in 1980 for your big hits, Steal Away, Hot Rod Hearts, saying that they knew who you were, they loved your music, and went and checked out your Audio Graffiti and Ordinary Day and really liked it. So I was really happy about that.
Oh, yeah, that's great. I mean, that's the power that we have today with the internet. We've lost a lot of power because of terrestrial radio going under.
Right.
We don't hear much radio anymore. But, with the power of the internet, when used in a great way like podcasts are, you get the message out and people tune in, and I'm always grateful for it. It's the only way that an artist like me exists anymore is because of the internet.
Right, yeah, with the promotion and getting traffic.
Just the fact that there's no vehicles. There used to be Midnight Special and American Bandstand and Don Kirshner's rock concert, and a score of television shows that were live music. Mm-hmm. Everybody really loved them. But when they all went away and MTV stopped catering and VH1, then there really wasn't anything. So you guys picked up the slack, and we're all the artists that I know are grateful for it. Yeah, I mean, MTV had I believe it was its 38th birthday the other day, and I saw something on the internet that says, "Happy 38th birthday, MTV. Thanks for 18 years of music." Exactly. Yeah, that's it, Well, I mean, I don't know who owns it anymore, but when these corporations get involved, just like in rock and roll, it changes the complexion of it. It's no longer a simple thing. It's involved like booking a show. If it's not Live Nation or AEG, you can't even get a show, Right. And it's, for the listeners, those are just big companies that control all the venues. Exactly. And you can still play small clubs, but even smaller clubs in New York and Chicago and LA and Atlanta are all affected by the corporate takeover. Exactly. Now, do you have any plans for any new singles or album releases in the near future? Part of the reason I took off was to write, and I've been, sketching out some tracks and doing some preliminary work. And what I usually do is figure out out of all of the things that I write, which are the things that are really worth recording.
Right.
Sometimes it's just stuff that you complete, but it's not really something that you really want to share with the audience yet.
Right.
So my plan is when I stop doing shows in the middle of October, I come back from Los Angeles, that I'll grind out a schedule for recording and record some of these tracks and see which ones float. And then hopefully for the new year, I'll have another series of a couple of singles to put out. That's the plan.
Oh, that'd be great. And we'd love to have you back to talk about those when those come into fruition.
Perfect.
Now, have you ever considered writing a book to chronicle your career and journey in the music business? Have you ever, that thought ever crossed your mind?
Well, it crossed my mind, and then I crossed it off my mind.
Okay.
I think that I've been asked a lot of times, because when you last as long as I have in this business and you know a lot of things,
right,
people are always encouraging you. But what I think about it is that to write a really interesting book, you'd have to dump a lot of secrets and talk about a lot of things that's not my way, You
don't want to be the Jose Canseco of rock music and spill all the beans on everything.
I just don't want to do that. And I think that there were one-off stories, and I thought that when you mentioned about podcasts, I often thought that's a fun kind of a concept of like a podcast with just some stories that people recount about maybe how their record deal happened or how their first hit happened, or just something. Not that you're trying to sanitize it, but it's not my place to tell the stories that perhaps weren't so dark back then, but pretty dark right now.
Right, it probably in today's world would be like nothing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So the book is not going to be happening at any time.
As a matter of fact, I just canceled my own participation in a book that was being written in France, just because I saw the questions that the guy sent me.
Oh, okay.
And I thought, is this a tabloid? Or is this a book, And I got screwed on a book, too. There is a British writer who's actually a pretty good writer and a really good guy who wrote a book about Woodstock called Small Town Talk.
Okay.
And I was interviewed quite extensively for the book. But when I read the book, I realized that his publishers had probably gotten involved in the editing of it, and they really made it more of a hatchet job on a couple of key people in Woodstock. And it really embarrassed me. Not that anything I said was used in a proper way, but the concept of the book was supposed to be about the Woodstock, the Bearsville Records, the music scene on the beginnings in the mid-'60s and to the '80s, and it was supposed to be that, and it really got butchered, and that was when I decided that
That's unfortunate.
I didn't want to be involved in something like that again.
Well, it's like what Don Henley wrote in that 1980, I guess it's 83 or 84 song, Dirty Laundry. People just love that kind of stuff. That's what sells. Unfortunately,
they do, and it's not like, I guess we all, all the listeners have had histories, whether they're 20 years old or they're 70 years old. And the thing about it is that they're funny stories for the living room with a couple of friends, but when you share them publicly and they get edited and they get directed in a certain way, they can really damage the people that the story is about or their children. There are some things that everybody's a bit regretful about that lived through the 60s and 70s, and I think that you don't really need to relive that. If you weren't there, you don't need to know about it.
Right, and there's certain mystery that's fun. Like Carly Simon wrote "You're So Vain," and she still won't say who it's about. So you could put it out in a way. You could put a story out in a way without actually having to name who it's about.
Yeah, well, you could do that, but I mean, it's just maybe that's a craft for a better writer who can do that kind of a thing. Tarantino's movie that's out now, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, is an interesting example of somebody who tells the story of 1969. It's really not about the Manson murders or anything specific. It's about L.A. Hollywood, 1969, and all the things that occur in there. And some of the people, most of the people were real, and they're named.
Oh, wow.
But the central characters in it are not named, and they're based on real people. And it's done very well.
Oh, that's good.
You know, it's kind of based on Burt Reynolds in his early days, and his stuntman, whose name escapes me at the moment. And those characters with different names are played by Leonardo DiCaprio and Brad Pitt.
Okay.
And it's great.
Now, what about, this is something that we cover a lot on the show. I mean, our show, our podcast, we cover all different topics, but a lot of our theme is about people not following the unwritten rules of society and a lot of the crazy shenanigans that go on out and about in society every day. As a performer, what is the craziest thing you ever saw, like in an audience, or that a fan has come up to you and ever asked you? Did you ever have an awkward moment with a fan, or have you ever looked out in the audience while on stage and just seen something so bizarre out there that you can recall?
That's a good one. I mean, there's a lot of, probably more of the bizarre stuff occurred in the dressing room.
Okay.
than in the audience. I can't think of anything particular. I mean, aside from the run-of-the-mill girls taking off their tops.
Right.
That kind of stuff. But I can't think of anything extreme that happened at any of my shows, or even any shows that I attended.
That's good, though. You're keeping away from
Right. One funny thing happened once. It was in the 80s. I don't know what it was, maybe like 83, 84. I never do corporate shows. I don't like an inattentive audience, and I don't blame them. They're there to party and have a great time, and then I pay attention to music. They just want to dance or whatever it is. But anyway, I stay away. But one year, a group of us were hired to do this show in Albany, New York, which was run by a big guy who owned, like, I don't know how many car dealerships. And every year he was known for putting on this spectacular show. And this one year he had Orleans, and I can't remember everybody that was on the show. But I remember that he had an announcer who was way over the top.
Okay.
And he had like a jacket that lit up with like little flash bulbs. And when it's my time to come out on stage, he says to me, "Now listen, you wait here, and I'm going to introduce you. You hear? And you come out when I enter." All right, I've done this before. So he goes out on the stage and he said, "You know his hit records. You've seen him perform before. He's one of the greats. He's incredible. Ladies and gentlemen, let's bring him out on stage. Robbie Dupree."
All that hype for nothing.
Yeah, and he had no idea who I was.
Oh, that is great.
And it was just perfect.
And that's one of the cardinal things that I DJ'd weddings and events for about 12 years, and that was one of the things I always wanted to get correct. I would sit with the bride and groom and go over each pronunciation of each name. I never wanted to get a name wrong, let alone yours.
Pretty embarrassing.
So the thing I think that stood out the most for the listeners in your appearance last time, we'll close it out with this, is that when you mentioned that you were at the Grammy Awards in 81, you were nominated for Best New Artist, and you were sitting around the likes of Michael Jackson and Diana Ross and Stevie Wonder, and you felt that you didn't belong, your confidence wasn't there yet, despite having already, having a hit record and your album was on the rise. What advice do you have for people that that are talented, that maybe have that same feeling, that are getting started?
I think it's a good feeling to have, because I think that you can, you've got to earn that. The difference between a couple of hit records and being Stevie Wonder or Michael Jackson is, amateur baseball to Mickey Mantle, if you know what I mean?
Right.
So I was never comfortable, and I still am not in that kind of a circumstance. I don't really know if it's a lack of confidence. I don't really think that's what it is anymore. I just think that there are people who have managed to marry success with celebrity, and I was never good at that. I never enumerated among my friends
Right.
all those types of people, and it's very transient, when you do that. I think the smartest thing to do is go at a slow pace to allow your talent to catch up to your confidence.
Sure.
And you could, instead of the opposite way around, many people come in there boldly confident and they're not really ready yet.
Right.
I certainly was, that description, best new artist, was probably very appropriate, and these
Right.
other people were in another, completely other status,
Sure.
And, when you're surrounded by that, unless you're really tripping on it, you can't really feel like you belong there totally,
Right.
And that's the way it is. It's today it's very different. Today you can make one record
Yep.
and win like 12 Grammys at one time, your whole career in a night. But it wasn't really like that in the other days,
Yeah, what do you think? What do you think of the way that they calculate like most weeks at number ones now based on streaming and downloads? Do you think it's fair that someone, I forget who recently it was, there was a rap star who just broke the record for all time consecutive weeks at number one, and do you think it's like a fair comparison for someone to just click play on a device as someone going out to a store to buy a record?
Well, the bar is lower now,
right?
And I mean, I'm not commenting and saying that I don't think Old Town Road isn't a good song. That's the one that you're talking about.
Right.
I think that because radio doesn't exist in the form that it used to exist in, I think that they have to have some form of measuring device for it. And as long as everybody is playing by the same rules, then I guess it's fair.
Right.
The thing was never really fair. I mean, you know about radio, and
right.
the fans maybe know about radio, maybe they don't, but it was never really fair. Is there any difference between number one and number four?
No.
Are there any more plays? When there was top 10 radio, those songs were in a rotation.
Yes, you're
they
right.
They didn't play one more than 10 or 9 or 7, but, there were politics, and there was payola.
Right.
There was all kinds of stuff that made those songs become number one and break records. It's always been kind of a BS thing, and that's the part I never really liked.
Yeah, and I don't get, if someone really loves a song and plays it 100 times a day on their own device, does that count 100 plays towards that? I mean, it could be the same person doing it.
Well, that's what I mean. but everybody's in the same game, and that's why they all are trying to get as many Instagram followers,
right?
And as many, it's a whole other social media game that
really
people
is.
play today. And so, for me, I'm not in that game. It's not that I have a problem with it. It's just like those days, as I made clear the last time, I have no illusion. I make the music for the people who follow it and enjoy it.
Right.
There's no number one. There's no more Grammys.
Right.
That goes for a lot of people. That goes for James Taylor. That goes for Bonnie Raitt. That goes for Steely Dan.
Well, it took Steely Dan 25 years to get their first Grammy after they started. They didn't get their first one until 98, I think.
Right. But what I mean is, even that's all over now.
Oh, yes.
Have you watched the Grammys?
Not in about 3 years. I really have no interest anymore.
What I'm saying is that we've had our time in that particular arena. That doesn't mean we don't have our time playing music or playing shows, but that door is closed.
And it doesn't matter to you anymore anyway.
And it doesn't matter to me. But again, I think that if that's the meter that everybody is using to decide what number one is, then I guess it's fair.
Right.
I don't know how else to think of it,
Well, I appreciate you coming on again. And, folks, again, go to RobbieDupree.com. Robbie says there's going to be some new show information coming up on that site in the next week or so. You can follow him on Facebook. Just type in Robbie Dupree and make sure you get the official account. You have the little blue check right next to your official account, right, on Facebook?
Yeah, there are two. There's a personal and there's a fan page. The personal one is filled, so I can't take anybody on.
Okay.
But the other page is wide open, and I do respond to messages, and I do what I can to keep up and keep everybody aware. I post music and video cuts and all of that. I don't remember when I was on in May. Had I had the video out for Audio Graffiti yet?
Yeah, you had it out. Yep.
Okay. I can't remember the time. Yeah, so I post videos and current events and all of that stuff. So, yes, that's the way to keep in touch. And I'm really grateful, Charlie, for you having me on again. Please do. And maybe if you come to the show in Atlanta, maybe you'll come look for me backstage.
Yeah, absolutely. And keep in touch. We'd love to have you on again. And really, thank you for being so kind and generous with your time and being a friend of the show. And, you know, we got primary season coming up in the winter, and there'll be a lot to talk about. So we'd love to have you on again to talk about some other topics.
Absolutely. Okay.
All right, Robbie. Yeah, be safe on the road, okay?
Great weekend.
All right, you too.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. I really enjoyed talking to Robbie. He's a real gentleman, real nice guy, and we hope to have him on again. Robbie, thanks again for spending the time, and good luck on the upcoming shows. Definitely go to RobbieDupree.com, folks. Learn a little bit more about him, where he's going to be touring, and just learn about his music, not just Steal Away and Hot Rod Hearts and Brooklyn Girls, the popular stuff, but look up his discography on Wikipedia. If you have an Alexa, Amazon device, tell her to play Robbie Dupree, and she'll shuffle all different songs. I think you'll find him relaxing, smooth. You want to sit by the pool, read a book, put on some Robbie Dupree. I think you'll really enjoy it. So I want to thank all of our past guests. Now, this is where I really have to put in my gratitude, because especially in the early days, to get the show traction and get listeners, we had some guests on, and people really took a liking to the show, but we built upon that. And I want to thank Johnny B. He was our first guest ever on the show, and he's been on 3 or 4 times. Jen, who you just heard a couple of segments ago. Jenny, who you heard back in, I believe it was end of November for our polyamory discussion. Corey, my neighbor, who's been on a couple of times talking about road rage and turkeys in traffic and neighbor situations. So Corey, thank you, and hope we'll have you on again. Philip, we don't forget Philip, who called in this week. Great talk about music and lyrics, and we hope to have Philip on again. Amanda, who's been on a couple of times, our human resources specialist, if you will, who talked about some work-related issues and some funny phrases used in the workforce. We had a lot of fun with her. Benji, who we've had. Benji is a man of many talents. Radio, a plant-based expert, and conference coordinator. Benji does it all, and he's a great contributor to the show. And not just on the air, folks. Behind the scenes, being a radio guy, coming up with ideas on how we can improve the audio and a lot of stuff. And I know I'll be working with him a lot to improve some of the features and quality of the show going forward. So Benji, and for his friendship, thank you so much. And his wife, Claire, remember we said Benji, Claire, Benji, but Claire, who's been on a couple of times, who hosted a show, interviewed me, also was a part of our plant-based vegan show, Plantastic. It's Plantastic. My father-in-law, Paul, who appeared on the show back in March for our Keep, Can, or Collect episode. People really loved him. Great guy, great sense of humor, and hopefully we'll have him back on, even if it's by phone on one of these days. Renee, who is Johnny B's wife, who contributed to the It's Plantastic episode, did a wonderful job. My wife, Jen, who actually finally came on close to our year anniversary last week and contributed to the It's Plantastic episode. Robbie Dupree, Grammy Award Nominated singer-songwriter with just a great guy. Been on a couple of times. Robbie, thank you. Todd Daring from the Haunted State docuseries on Amazon Prime. Had a great conversation with Todd. I hope to have him back on. Another music aficionado, radio guy, so it would be fun to have him back on. Hope I'm not forgetting everybody. I think I covered that. So our guests have been great, but it's you, the fans, folks, that make this show what it is. You're tuning in every week. You're commenting. You're voting. And I really mean it from the bottom of my heart. I know I talk about the show expanding and the more listeners, and yeah, that's important. It's important to grow a show. But it's more about the individual people that come on, people that message me, email, vote, and or people that just don't even, they don't even want to get involved with social media, that just listen every week, the core listeners, and those are the people that make the show every week. So thank you all for spending, bringing me into your homes, your cars, your gyms, your toilets, wherever you listen to the show. Hopefully we're making the week a little bit better for you guys, making you laugh or covering a topic maybe you didn't know about. And we're bringing some much needed escape and entertainment from what's going on in the country and in the world around us. It could be pretty depressing putting on the news and, just hearing what's going on out there. So hopefully this is an escape. That was my plan, to be an escape for people. We touch on politics very little and some issues and stuff. We try not to get too deep because we want it to be that escape for you. So I really appreciate, again, all the guests that have appeared on the show, the listeners, everybody who has contributed to making a bunch of malarkey last a year and keep growing as far as listeners, and keeping the people, most importantly, the people that have been here from the beginning, coming back each and every week. So I thank you all. Cannot do it without you. Where are we located, folks, so you can spread the word? We're on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, I say Google, not Google Play, Spotify, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, Radio Public, Radio.com, Stitcher, Castbox, YouTube, or if you have one of those Alexa, Amazon Echo devices, just say, Alexa, play the podcast, A Bunch of Malarkey. So that's going to wrap it up. I know it was another long episode. So I appreciate it. I appreciate you sticking with these 90-minute. We'll go back to an hour and under next week, but we've had a couple of shows which warranted a little bit longer the last couple of weeks. So, hey, it's extra malarkey, right? For the price of nothing. You get more malarkey for nothing. So, folks, whether you're listening to a bunch of malarkey or just driving around in your car, or whatever you're doing to close out the summer, sitting by the pool, whatever you're doing to get you through the heat, humidity, the thunderstorms, maybe you're even sitting on the toilet. And even then you have to beware. And why is that? Because it's a shit show out there. Thank you so much for tuning in to this very special episode. Have a great week, everybody, and we'll talk to you next Monday. Take care.